afternoon, everyone. My name's Gail Borley. I head up brand and digital marketing at Opticians. I've spent the last 15 years working in a variety of marketing roles, starting out my career at Amex, and most recently the last 5 years at Boots in the retail team and now in Opticians. For those that don't know, Boots Opticians is actually number 2 in the optical market in terms of revenue share. We're part owned by Boots, but we're also part owned by a glasses company in Italy called Dorigo. So it means we stock some amazing brands, some which you might be surprised to know, like Prada, Tom Ford, Gucci, and more. I'm pretty proud to work for this brand and all the brands that I work for. But I will leave it there in terms of the brand plug. So on to why I'm here today. I'm going to talk to you about connected TV, or CTV, as it's often referred to, although I will later explain I'm not the biggest fan of acronyms. When discussing the topic with Ben and the team, it seemed like a perfect blend of my experience from both a brand and digital perspective. But the guys wanted to hear from a brand's perspective on this topic, because often when you come to events like this, it's either from a media partner or an agency, and it can often be quite technical. And actually potentially more confusing than helpful. So today I'm going to kick off with telling you a bit about my CTV journey. This is me with my feet up in my new extension in front of my Samsung connected TV, where I tend to sit with my husband, kids, my dog, nestle into a series. But I'm also a bit of a closet trash TV fan as well. I've had smart TVs for quite a long time, and I tend to use like a Fire Stick because I find it quite quick and quite user-friendly, and I'm using it across multiple TVs. But because this is a new one, I'm actually just using the main menu. But to be blunt, I find it quite rubbish. It's quite slow to move around. I spend way more time moving in and out of different apps trying to find something to watch than actually watching it itself. And that becomes even more complicated when I bring my children into the mix as well. I have pretty much most subscriptions under the sun: Disney+, Netflix, Prime, Now TV, and more recent times I've been using the free with ads like Rakuten. So as a user, it can be quite frustrating and also quite overwhelming. And if that's the case for me as a consumer, and I'm obviously working in the marketing industry and I know about these things, it can be confusing for lots of people, but even more as an advertiser. And yeah, this quote just sums up really nicely in terms of how consumers are feeling with the overwhelm of streaming. But being a marketer these days is really hard work. Coming from my side, on the client side, not only do you need to know your role, but you need to interface with loads of different people internally. You need to be best buds with finance, produce the most amazing creative, deliver really profitable ROIs, as well as stay up to date with the rapidly evolving marketing industry. And obviously digital and media is at the forefront of that. My view is that we should acknowledge and speak about the complexity more, as well as the opportunities. And the art is actually in cutting through all of that for what's right for your brand and what you're trying to do. And when I talk about simplicity, I actually don't mean basic, because making something simple is actually quite difficult. And I think people that work on creative will especially know that. As Leonardo da Vinci and Steve Jobs apparently said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So I'm going to share with you my views on how to navigate the complex world of CTV. I'm not standing up claiming here to be an expert on CTV at all. I'd actually class myself as a generalist marketer. But what I'm going to do is show you how applying some of the fundamental principles of marketing to CTV, as opposed to trying to ram CTV into your plans just because it's of the moment and on trend, will actually make things come out better. So to be honest, even if you're not planning on doing anything on CTV at the moment, or you just came along in between lunch and parties later, these tips are pretty transferable across any media or campaign that you're planning. I mentioned that I'm not a fan of acronyms, so I thought I'd give you a quick lowdown on some of the key terms that are bandied about and that I will be using. So CTV, connected TV, also known as smart TVs, basically, don't know what happened there. Going back. I'll keep talking, hopefully it will come up. Basically, any TV that connects to the internet, you can get ad delivers via the TV's operating system, so like on your home screen of your smart TV, or obviously through the content being streamed. That takes me on to OTT. I'm just going to click through and see if that works. No. Come back up. OTT, so that's obviously the streaming content that comes through via the internet, so not via cable, satellite, or your aerial. So that's like your broadcaster VOD. I heard about BVOD earlier, another acronym. So ITVX, SVOD, subscription VOD, like Netflix. And predominantly those are either streamed via the device itself, whether that's connected TV, laptop, phone, or actually via Fire Stick, Apple TV, or even a PlayStation. And then, of course, we've got linear TV. If I skip on, there we go. Back to where we were. Which, you know, traditional broadcast TV, so anyone over 30 kind of grew up with that, which I would summarise as my kids not understanding that they can't watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. Their mind is blown. I want to watch that. And that not how it works. Which obviously, whilst in decline because all the content and services available, is still very much alive. And from an advertising point of view, by nature of linear TV and broadcast, most people are watching the same ad at the same time if they're watching the same content. I'm not going to ream off loads of facts about CTV. I'm sure you might have already heard some today, and you can read that elsewhere. But from a trend point of view, what's really clear is that connected TVs have grown dramatically over the years, and in the case that they're now basically standard. And their technology has advanced so much that means there's loads of personalisation options available based on the data that they collect about you. And streaming has obviously had a significant boost through the pandemic, and whilst had a bit of a rocky time, still very much in place today, but it also diversifies as well. So not just across providers and now with free with ad providers, but also Netflix, for example, having their fairly new basic service where you can pay a lower monthly fee by watching the ads. That alongside loads of other digital media options, now we have to consider taking TikTok a lot more seriously, alongside Meta, retail media, influencers and more. There's just so many more opportunities for people to view and consume. And that means for advertisers, there's also a lot more opportunities to reach new and often younger audiences, lighter TV viewers as well, ultimately gaining incremental reach and relevance. But this has also led to so many more things to consider across these fragmented channels, and therefore to get your head around. So here is how I'll be navigating the complex world of CTV in 5 simple principles. Firstly, be proactive about your own learning and your own research on CTV. Don't just wait for it to come to you. There's loads of info out there. But you're the person who knows your brand the best, and therefore is the best person to find that out, find out what you need to know. If this is the stage that you're at and you're here today, then a big proactive tick, so give yourself a pat on the back. But seriously, lean on whatever resources you have available. And whether that's gaining knowledge through your media agencies, really leaning on them, ask those silly questions. Don't be afraid to seek out that knowledge, and you should feel as much an expert as they do. Reading up via industry publications, I'm signed up to loads of different newsletters. They go into a folder in my inbox, and then I tap into them when I need to know certain things. Of course, attending events like this. And if you're fortunate enough to have internal learning resources as well, take the time out, prioritise your own development. And obviously, if all else fails, just Google it, or potentially, controversially, chat GPT. Of course, one watch out, this has the potential for overwhelm. So be selective, do it at the time when you need to know more about CTV, and find the topics that are right for you and your brand. I also tend to ask my friends and family, my team members, to kind of get out of my own personal preference bubble as well, and really understand how people are consuming content and adverts. Secondly, know your target customer. Now, I know this seems really obvious at a marketing event, but it's actually surprising how often little people really immerse themselves in their customer behaviours, where they are and what they're consuming. In advertising streaming terms, it's about understanding what content your target audience is watching, what resonates with them, how you can target them, and actually, is CTV and streaming right for you? So for example, in the optical industry, our audience tends to skew older because of age-related factors that impact your eye health and your vision. And so because of that, our kind of core target group, very much still consumers of linear TV. So for us, CTV and streaming is all about how does that complement linear TV? How do we use that to gain incremental reach, tap into new audiences, and generate the strongest possible ROI versus and alongside other channels? So it's not just purely about CTV. Thirdly, don't plan channels in isolation. It's very easy to sit within our own channels and specialties, but in reality, customers don't operate like that. They are one person, and they're often consuming for multiple people in their household, friends, family, and children. And as a result, we must consider the other parts at play. Now, that's really easy for me to see. I have the benefit of going across all channels in the marketing mix. However, if you're in a team with channels, or maybe another team, spend time with them, get to know what they're all about, what are they trying to do, think collectively about your approach. Don't be greedy about marketing budgets, think about the greater good. Again, lean on your media agency if you're lucky enough to have one. Look at what planning tools they have available that can plan across channel and within channels as well. Our agency, MediaCom, we're working with them currently on a number of different cross-planning tools that will really help us drive efficiency and relevance with customers. The other thing to remember is that often when people are watching TV, they are using other devices. We heard about that earlier. I read that 95% of people are holding a phone whilst they're watching TV, which blew my mind at first, but then I thought that is probably me all the time. So how can you use that to your advantage? Engage using video to engage on TV whilst doing some conversion messaging through all the sophisticated targeting and planning tools that are available. 4, create relevance and grab attention. Attention has definitely been a buzzword at today's event. And one of the great benefits of CTV and related advertising versus traditional is the ability to target based on a number of factors, including content, location, and many more things. Combining that with knowing your target customer, this means that you can reduce wastage by getting to the most relevant audience and perhaps even having dynamic creative to drive further relevance with them. In terms of grabbing attention, obviously that's really important from an advertising point of view, because if you don't do that, then what's the point? But of course, within ad breaks, even more so, because we want to keep people with us unless they go off for a cup of tea. But luckily, and again, as I heard earlier today, CTV or streaming ads actually more opportunity because there's generally less of them, and people are more actively engaged in what they're watching. Therefore, there's more opportunity to make the most of that. But we need to think about what we do in the first few seconds still. Regardless of whether there's more opportunity from streaming ads, actually the first few seconds are critical in whatever we do. So think about how you can make your creative really stand out in those early parts of the ad, be noticed and feel really relevant. As an example, we launched our new brand platform, See What's Possible, last year, which had an accompanying TV ad. There was 3 things that we did to capture that attention. 1, we used the mesmerising eye and also familiar sounds and sights associated with an optician to draw people in. And you will kind of see some of those techniques quite a lot on social in terms of ASMR. We asked a question. Our first point was asking a question, because what better way to provoke a response than ask a question? And finally, and really critically, we made it clear that it was Boots Opticians, using branding, using colours, and the trusted voice that you'd expect from Boots Opticians. So I'm just going to play you now so you see how it plays out.
Ever wondered what's possible when you look at life through a different lens?
Well done.
Perhaps you'll feel free to see what's out there, or focus on what's right in front of you. Maybe you'll experience something for the first time, or head out with a newfound confidence. And with our range of affordable and designer glasses to unmatched rewards from our contact lens plan. At Boots Opticians, we'll do everything possible to help you see what's possible.
Finally, my 5th recommendation is to measure holistically. There's obviously loads of measurement tools out there, and there's loads within CTV itself. But that's a whole other complex topic that I won't go into today. And with obviously more channels and more opportunities, there's more things to measure. Now, whilst there's not one answer, and probably no right answer, my view is that you can't just measure one thing when looking at CTV. You have to look at multiple data points to build up a picture of how your campaign and how CTV is performing for you. Again, it goes back to the thinking about a consumer being one person who consumes different media and planning holistically as well. I, for example, will be looking at a range of things, from econometrics to our GA data, to working with partners to feed in our own first-party data to understand which of our customers respond better, to view through rates and many more. And one small part of that puzzle that we did from a CTV perspective was using a QR code on our ads and making that really prominent. And I find this quite funny because a few years pre-pandemic, I laughed when somebody put a QR code on my ad. I said, oh, nobody uses QR codes. And then obviously fast forward the pandemic and now we're all using QR codes, including today. But my point about this is that whilst this is one single data point, I can take the number of people that scan that, then go on to book an appointment. I can take the media investment that we've put into that, and at a very basic level, I can work out my baseline ROI without any fancy econometrics. But then I layer additional things on top to bring together that whole story. So yes, don't just rely on one metric alone. Think about measurement from a CTV perspective holistically. So there you have it. Those are my 5 simple but sophisticated principles to help you navigate the complex world of CTV and media fragmentation. Educate yourself, know your customer, cross-channel planning, relevance and attention, and measure holistically. And it goes without saying that if you've struggled to read this presentation, or when you're watching the TV, or it's just prompted you to think about your eyes because you hadn't thought about it in a while, please do scan to book an eye test. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Gail, thank you very much. Very insightful indeed.